Going on YouTube. We about to marinate some yogurt, some food and shit, and we gonna see what where my dogs at Coffee House Crime talking about. They said an influencer couple they murdering and shit. Like we can't do that. You know what I'm saying? You know I do love me a good story.
4-year-old Alexis Robinold married 47-year-old Tom Sharkey.
Wait, how old was she?
When 24-year-old Alexis Robinold married 47-year-old Tom Sharkey,
Jesus Christ, 24 and 47?
she hoped that marrying someone twice her age would bring maturity and security.
Oh my God.
Perhaps from the outside, most believed that she had found herself a strong and stable partner, and their social media certainly portrayed them as a happy, successful couple. But unfortunately, things were not okay behind closed doors, and the world would soon come to realize this when Alexis suddenly vanished. The news made her husband Tom both anxious and terrified. However, friends noticed his story would change multiple times in the days after her disappearance.
Oh, so this did it.
Especially once her body had tragically been discovered. But this was just the beginning, and how this story ultimately ends will shock you. Welcome back to Coffee House Crime, folks. My name is Adrian, and today we're traveling to Texas for another.
He reminds me so much of CoffeeZilla.
This case headlines across the internet for all
like
of the
the English version of
and just
CoffeeZilla.
goes to show that what people post online isn't necessarily true. By the way, I post stories like this up to twice a week here, so please consider subscribing if that's your sort of thing. And before we begin, here is a quick minute from this video's sponsor, June's Journey. Now,
You know what?
you've likely already heard of June's Journey.
There we go.
Welcome back to the Lone Star State, folks. And of course, I'm talking about the incredible state of Texas. Now, there is no need for formal introductions here.
Oh, I'm in
We all know
sync?
Texas to varying degrees already. And love it or hate it, it remains one of America's most iconic and fastest growing states. Gone are the days of stereotypical cowboys and saloon bars. Big modern cities like Austin, Dallas, and Houston are changing the Texan landscape. And its economy is thriving thanks to its rapid development in the biomedical, technology, and aerospace industries. However, step out of the big cities
Thugs.
and you will still find their Wild West roots, with rodeos popping up yearly and cattle filling the many open pastures. Our story today is far away from this more rustic lifestyle, as today we're zoning in on the city of Houston. Houston is well known for its energy manufacturing,
Houston.
aeronautical engineering,
We have a problem.
impressive healthcare research, and of course, NASA. Although it has had impressive economic success, there is sadly no doubt that the city has had a real problem with crime and gang activity. Houston's crime rate is notably higher than the national average,
I wonder if it's higher than Florida.
and unfortunately, it doesn't appear to be slowing down anytime soon. Due to its proximity to the border, it is often used as a hub for trafficking drugs such as cocaine and methamphetamine through to the rest of the country.
Jesus
and
Christ.
what is even more unfortunate is its rapidly growing murder rate, with almost 500 people murdered within the city in 2021 alone.
Damn.
The rate here has nearly doubled in 2 years since 2019.
What the fuck going on in Austin, Bill?
Yup. Texas, you are beautiful but dangerous. Now, of course, this is often attributed to gang warfare over turf and drugs. And so, the intelligent option here is simply to not become involved in that sort of thing. However, saying that, you will still have to watch your back here, as that does not fully negate the possibility. With such a high murder rate, it is not uncommon for the police to receive phone calls reporting the discovery of a body. But when a phone call came in on November the 28th, 2020, from a man who had just found one on the side of the road outside of town,
What?
police officers had no idea what story would unfold in its shadow. Police officers responding to the scene were met with a morbidly peculiar sight. Located just along the side of the road on Red Hall Lane, they found a pair of feet sticking out of the undergrowth.
Yo.
The report came in from a local sanitary worker just before 8 a.m. that morning. As per his usual schedule, he was cleaning the road when he came across the body in the bush. And not wanting to become involved, he immediately called the police without disturbing the scene. Upon closer inspection, investigating officers uncovered the body carefully as to not tamper with any evidence. They would soon discover that the body turned out to be that of a young woman in her 20s. And although she had been stripped naked, she had no visible signs of trauma or apparent cause of death. Evident through the condition.
They shot up every house party down there. Every house party I didn't go to got shot up. Yo, what? Friend's dad got shot in the kneecap. He was pressing dude that got robbed his house and then got 12 years. That's crazy, bro. Feel that they for sure fucked the house market up way more. Wait, that's crazy because niggas used to want to go to Texas because they'd be like, oh, I can get a big house for cheap. I don't think it's like that no more, gang. Got shot in the kneecap. That's crazy. Oh my. Oh, let me hold my knee real quick.
Of her body, she had likely been placed here quite recently, either overnight or the day prior.
Everybody lock in. Make sure y'all got socks in or socks on type shit. I feel like this is gonna be calm.
There was no indication that she'd walked here on her own, and it made perfect sense for officers to initially believe that foul play was involved. So, who was this young woman? Why was she naked? What was the cause of her death? And how did she meet her untimely demise? The body was transported to Harris County Medical Examiner's office later that day. However, it would be quite some time until they fully established the cause of her death.
Damn.
But saying that, it wouldn't actually take long until her identity was revealed. You see, a young woman had been reported as missing just
Houston's
2 days
dangerous.
prior, and this body, it matched her description. With that in mind, officers contacted the husband of the missing woman, asking him to come down to the medical examiner's office for identification. And so enter Tom Sharkey, a 49-year-old bodybuilder and menacing hulk of a man.
Jesus
After
Christ.
walking in to identify the body, Tom was sadly able to verify that it did in fact belong to 26-year-old Alexis Sharkey. The man was visibly distraught at the discovery, and it's clear that he had long held out hope that all of this would be a temporary nightmare. That
Damn,
not
bro.
only was this body not his wife, but that eventually she would return home safely. Life can be sickeningly cruel, and his hopes were crushed without mercy. But who precisely were Alexis and Tom Sharkey? How exactly did they meet? And what would lead them to these unfortunate circumstances? Beginning with Alexis, she was born on February the 6th, 1994, and was the first child of Stacy and Mike Robinault. She was a beautiful 26-year-old woman who prided herself on her appearance. However, beneath that lovely facade was a matching personality and intelligent mind to boot. She would later gain 2 beautiful younger sisters, and the family led a peaceful and happy life, as evidenced by many various photos.
Aww.
While growing up, Alexis attended Youngsville High School before graduating in 2012, where she then went on to gain further education at the University of Pittsburgh. She was brilliant and ambitious, achieving a major in biology and 2 minors in nutrition and psychology. So, there is no doubt that Alexis had a passion for physical and mental health, with an interest in self-improvement and cosmetics. Alexis planned to go to medical school following her graduation, but first, she wanted to take a gap year before settling down, and this is what led her to move to Houston in the year 2017. It was during this time that she worked at a local Twin Peaks bar. For those of you outside of America,
Yeah, Twin Peaks is basically like basically like Hooters.
Twin Peaks is quite similar to Hooters,
Yeah.
and typically hosts lightly dressed women who serve drinks and food to customers. With her beauty, it is no surprise that she gained a lot of attention from customers, and many of them would pay her rather large tips, which allowed her to lead a lavish lifestyle outside of work.
I always thought about like women who work at places like that. Like I wonder if their heads get like fucked up. I wonder if their perception of dating is either helped, ruined, or altered by the fact that like your job every day is like, you know what I'm saying? Hopefully y'all get what I'm saying, but like as a woman, I feel like that would mess with your head. But I don't know. Like all these dudes just tipping me every day, thousands, like hundreds of dollars and shit, just cause. But nah, man, just like working at a place like Hooters or Twin Peaks, I don't know. The money got to be good, but the anxiety and like the mental part probably is really exhausting. I don't know.
Alexis posted everything about herself and her life online, and it's through this social media presence that she would eventually become best known. And to this day, her Instagram account has amassed more than 78,000 followers. On this account, she would post the more luxurious parts of her life, including holidays with her girlfriends, days out for brunch, and dozens of glamour shots of her wearing various designer outfits. She would also post about health choices on her story, though, of course, she would never say no to the odd glass of champagne with the girls. It was during her social media journey that she would eventually meet Tom Sharkey,
Swole
a
ass nigga.
49-year-old bodybuilder who would often visit the bar where she worked. 20 years older than she was, Tom was born in Fort Myers,
That's
Florida,
crazy.
and, according to him, he studied at the School of Hard Knocks. With that said, it is no surprise that little is known about his education. Now, Tom was no stranger to women. He maintained plenty of relationships throughout the decades, one of which resulted in a baby daughter who, by the time this case takes place, was now a fully grown adult. Although the relationship with her mother would eventually come to an end, he fully supported his daughter both emotionally and financially. After all, Tom was a consultant in the oil industry, and having this well-paying job not only allowed him to travel across the globe, but also look after his family. This is likely one of the many factors that drew Alexis towards him. She had always loved to travel, and had long dreamed of finding a job that would allow her to move around freely. In addition to this, Tom was not just a charismatic man with a larger-than-life personality,
Brent, where's the game? Chill.
but was also very popular amongst the locals. So, accompanied by his well-built physique, it is quite understandable why Alexis would have been drawn to him. After meeting at the bar, Tom slid into her DMs to ask for tips and tricks about fitness. You see, with her being a nutritional expert and him being a bodybuilder, they had plenty to talk about. Tips turned into compliments, compliments into flirting, and before they knew it, a relationship had blossomed. Fast forward to December of 2019, and they were married. During that time, Tom carefully observed Alexis and her social media before eventually deciding to join in on that virtual facade. And from then on, the two would portray a very happy life together. The pair adored each other, and as far as anyone knew, they were in the process of living happily ever after. Or so everyone thought. And now, it would seem that the pair had been—
I like how you talk. Like he really he is the embodiment of suspense. Like this is the type of nigga you want to narrate your life type shit.
ripped apart in the most tragic—
Actually, no, I need Morgan Freeman. If I ever get like a biopic, I need Morgan Freeman narrate my shit.
and sad of circumstances. By the time his wife had been identified, she had been missing for well over 24 hours. A very crucial period for any disappearance and the evidence that goes with it.
Jesus.
As part of all homicide investigations, detectives first looked towards her closest friends and relatives for information.
You gotta look at that nigga, bro.
And so, it was no surprise that her husband, Tom Sharkey, was the first.
It's the first one you look at, bro.
Now, as far as anybody knew, Tom was the last person to see his wife alive. And as most of you will already know by now, a spouse is often the most influential person to a homicide investigation. Detectives were keen to know exactly what happened, at least from his perspective. And so, Tom's story is as follows. According to him, Alexis had recently returned home after a holiday with friends in Tulum, Mexico, with her returning home just before Thanksgiving on November the 26th. Following her return, the pair decided to enjoy a romantic dinner together that evening. Apparently, it went very well, with the two heading to bed for fun before sleeping. However, Tom claimed that things took a very steep turn the next day, when, on November the 27th, Alexis allegedly started drinking throughout the daytime. Now, this made no sense to her friends and family, and would have been highly out of character for Alexis. Quite
She on day drink.
simply, she wasn't built that way. Tom admitted that he didn't know why she was day drinking, and further asserted that the two never argued. He also claimed that Alexis tried to drive under the influence and that he tried to stop her. As a result, she stormed away on foot. In an interview, Tom would also say, "She understood me. I understood her. We didn't fight when she left. I just told her that she couldn't drive under the influence." she left anyhow. When she failed to return the
I don't know. That don't sound right. Update followers. Wait, where we at? We at 21 now?
next day, he notified her parents of the situation, who, in response, contacted the authorities. But her mother, Stacy, was perplexed about the situation.
Nah,
She'd
for
spoken
real.
to Alexis only 3 days prior, and Alexis seemed happy. After reporting her disappearance to the authorities, Tom, Stacy, and her friends took to social media to try and find her. And her mother, who posted on Facebook, said, "Please share this post. My daughter, Alexis Sharkey, is missing. No one has heard from her for over 24 hours.
Bro, like as a mother, this is probably one of the worst messages that you could ever have to type. I prayed on everything. I don't ever have to type nothing like this, bro. Like this shit scares me, bro. No cap.
Police are involved. She has lived in Houston, Texas since January, and that is where she was last seen. Please help us find her and bring her home safely. We are so very desperate. Please share." As you know, Alexis had a relatively large following online, and so, with such an audience, she was often attached to her phone. As a result, her friends would usually see her appear online, not just through Instagram, but through other apps and platforms too. However, her friends would also report that, ever since she disappeared on the evening of the 27th, she had not been seen online. Furthermore, she hadn't replied to any of her messages or posted anything on her profile. To add to that, all messages and phone calls were ignored.
Damn, bro.
During the initial 24 hours, Tom frantically contacted his wife's many friends to ask if they had seen or had heard from her. Many recall him being extremely erratic, but the thing that concerned them the most was how his story seemed to change over the hours. You see, at first, Tom claimed that they had argued, but a couple hours later, he denied such allegations. And then he said that she had left barefoot and alone. A couple hours after that, she'd apparently got into the back of a car, never to be seen again.
You switching them
And despite
stories,
seeming
bro.
extraordinarily panicked about the situation, Tom was never actually the one to report her as missing to the authorities. Something you'd expect a husband to do for his wife.
Facts.
However, before much else could happen, and on the morning of November the 28th, a body matching her description had been found. And, as we know, she was identified shortly after. Although the cause of her death was initially unknown, it was initially speculated that she had either been poisoned or had taken her own life through an overdose. The latter was simply
Damn.
unbelievable to her family and friends. Alexis was happy, and she was very excited about the future. Despite all of those close to her being interviewed, none of them were identified as a potential suspect in her murder.
It's some shit we
However,
don't know.
they would all say the same thing, that she was happy, healthy, and had no history of drug abuse. Throughout these interviews, there was one small story that caught the interest of detectives. One of her friends who had traveled with Alexis to Mexico revealed that Alexis had confided in her about her rather rocky marriage with Tom. Apparently, despite her social media portraying a beautiful love story, things were not quite as they seemed behind closed doors. And further problems in their marriage were proven when, in Mexico, Alexis took a liking to one of the local DJs.
Oh,
They ended up
shit.
spending a lot of time together that week. However, she did not pursue anything too romantic or sexual, as Alexis did not want to be unfaithful to her husband. Quite honestly, it isn't clear what precisely happened between them, but Alexis's wondering eyes confirmed her perspective of the rocky relationship with Tom.
Bro,
And
I'm-
apparently, she
Bro,
never
I'm telling you, bro, when you go on Instagram and you see some couples, they look like they live in lavish, bro. That could be the complete opposite of what's really going on, bro. This case, unfortunately, is one of the depictions of the facade of social media. Like,
wanted to do anything that could anger Tom, as he could be rather intimidating at times. In fact, she would even tell her friend that she sometimes feared for her life. Sadly, there was a truth to Alexis's confession. After delving into the couple's personal lives, detectives discovered that she and Tom were already in the process of filing for divorce.
Oh, shit.
Which, up until this point in time, they had kept quiet from friends and family. Despite this, the divorce was not deemed to be a motive for Tom to cause any harm to Alexis. After all, he was posting all over social
That's motive,
media
though.
about how much he loved his wife. And now, with her sudden death, he instead was actively mourning his loss. However, the strange thing is that, despite her passing away only a few days prior, he was already beginning to depict Alexis as a troubled woman online, which is highly odd. I mean, who does that after just losing their partner? His efforts would not stop rumors from circling online that maybe Tom had something to do with her death. In fact, his strange behavior only seemed to perpetuate it. Followers and friends knew Alexis, and they were appalled to see Tom paint her in such a negative light. And when Tom's story began to sway and deviate from the authorities, it was sure to leave them suspicious too. The strange but unsurprising thing is, the more that Tom bashed his dead wife's personality online, the more her own crowd seemed to defend her. And before he knew it, he had multiple death threats. And as time went by, more suspicion seemed to be growing around Tom too.
What are threats at?
You see, despite being held in the coroner's office for more than 2 weeks already, Alexis's body was yet to be released. And that's because Tom was listed as her next of kin. And so, naturally, it was up to him what happened to the body. And despite Tom already agreeing with her parents that she could be flown back and then buried with the rest of her family, he had not yet contacted them or the coroner's office. With all the delays, Stacy clearly had enough. Tom was now ignoring her entirely, and so she decided to contact the authorities and demand answers too. Unfortunately though, they were also met in silence from him. In fact, Tom had stopped cooperating with the police altogether. In an act of mercy, the medical examiner changed her next of kin over to her mother, so she could finally be laid to rest. As a result, Alexis's funeral took place on December the 19th, 2020, and, no surprise, was kept a secret from Tom. Not that it mattered. Him vanishing aside, he never asked. This prompted the authorities to dig deeper into
Nah, for real, go get that nigga.
the investigation.
I don't gotta work
And
tomorrow.
finally, on the 19th of January 2021, the cause of her death was finally publicly revealed. Autopsy results concluded that Alexis had likely died due to strangulation, therefore deeming her case to be a homicide. I mean, I'd argue that was kind of obvious from the very beginning. After all, how had she ended up dead, naked, and carefully arranged under a bush if this was all just simply an overdose? Anyway, with the change in the manner of her death, the police had fresh authority to investigate and detain any
Yeah, let's go get that
potential
nigga. Let's go get that
suspects.
fuckboy.
And as you can imagine, by now, there was only one person in the spotlight. However, by the time her case was officially declared
gone.
to
He
be
slid.
a homicide,
He slid.
they had lost track of the only person they were interested in. As a result, it took months for officers to finally track Tom down, and it turns out that he had fled Texas shortly after his wife's death. He kept this extraordinarily quiet, and his social media, which had since turned silent, did not allude to anywhere he had run to. However, you can't run from the law forever.
No, you
and
can't,
they would
man.
eventually track him down in Georgia.
Them was gonna catch ya.
After several attempts to contact him over the phone, Tom
gotta work
finally
Wednesday?
agreed to submit a DNA sample in August of 2021. And you can probably guess what I'm going to say next, but Tom never attended this appointment.
Yeah, GG's. You know he grits.
Now, please correct me if you think otherwise, but it's not
You know he grits, chat. You know he grits, chat. That way, know he
hard
grits.
for anyone to assume that Tom likely knew more about his wife's death than he was willing to let on. I mean, his story had changed multiple times. He had smeared her personality and character online. He was no longer contacting her family or the detectives, and when asked for a DNA sample, he failed to show up. None of these things described the actions of an innocent man.
Nope.
And so, with that in mind, Tom became a primary suspect.
Go ahead, pick his ass
And
up.
furthermore, he seemed to have the means, motive, and opportunity to kill Alexis. Throughout their investigation, detectives realized that Tom actually had a history of domestic violence against her. And so, maybe that divorce was not as amicable as they initially thought. And so, on September the 29th, the authorities finally obtained a warrant for his arrest, and the hunt for Tom Sharkey officially began. And thankfully, it wouldn't take long for detectives to finally track him down. They believed he was staying with his daughter in Fort Myers, Florida. Police officers had to be very careful in
Fucking
conducting
Florida,
their
bro.
investigations. Tom was now a fugitive of the law, and his reaction to cops showing up at his doorstep was entirely unpredictable. Undercover officers would carefully watch the house from afar, and on October the 5th, their suspicions were finally confirmed. Over this time frame, Tom was seen exiting and entering the home on multiple occasions. It turns out that he appeared to be relying on his daughter to unknowingly help him avoid the law. In an effort not to lose him, officers planned to storm the property the next day once they could confirm he was still in the home. Marshals surrounded the house in preparation to enter. After knocking on the door, Tom's daughter answered and was briskly pushed aside in their rapid search for Tom. And after clearing the bottom floor, there was no sign of him whatsoever.
That nigga
That is when
slid?
the authorities learned just how unpredictable this man really was. Because, without any possible time to intervene, a gunshot echoed from the second floor.
Bro.
Upon ascending the stairs and storming the bedroom from which the noise came from, officers found his freshly lifeless body. By shooting himself in the head, he had taken the opportunity to keep control of the situation for one final time. This, of course, all but confirming that he was responsible for murdering his wife. Although he was still warm to the touch when officers found him, there was nothing they could do to bring him back. He was pronounced dead at the scene, bringing an end.
That's some bro. That's so fucking selfish, bro. For the family, bro. Nigga ain't want to face this shit, so he.
To the tragic case of Alexis Sharkey. As a result, the family of Alexis will never truly know what happened to their daughter. But, like I said, Tom's death basically solidifies his guilt. But how he murdered her, or why precisely, we unfortunately will never know.
Damn,
the only two
bro.
people that could provide these details are sadly no longer around. Now, interestingly enough, there was no evidence found in the home or either of their cars to directly link Tom to her murder. And so, theoretically, he could have gone to trial and been found not guilty. However, his actions, especially his final one, speak far louder than any of his false words.
Yes, facts.
And so, unfortunately, we are left with nothing more than a theory. But the authorities assume that the couple must have had an argument, which sadly sent Tom over the edge. And I mean, there were many reasons as to why he may have been upset. For example, maybe he was upset at the divorce. Or maybe he'd found out about her crush in Mexico.
Oh no, that nigga
And
got
so
roid
it is assumed
rage.
that this was likely a case of domestic violence. And Tom, not only did he have the history to back this up, but he was also triple her size. Alexis harbored her relationship struggles in secrecy, and the sad truth is that, if she had confided in her loved ones, she might have found the love and support that she needed to survive. Unfortunately, domestic violence or intimate partner violence
Rest in
is
peace,
all too
bro.
prevalent, and is indiscriminate of age, gender, or sexuality. And although domestic violence is often imagined with a female victim, mental and emotional abuse are equally experienced both ways. Suspicions over Tom's controlling behavior had long lingered with Alexis's family, and sadly, these suspicions were tragically validated after her passing.
Fuck.
Despite Tom's facade of happiness, success, and a thriving social circle, her family and friends always remained quietly skeptical. Devastatingly, they had no idea how deep his toxicity actually ran. Alexis was on the brink of liberating herself from the evil grip of her abusive husband. Divorce papers awaited signatures on dotted lines, and she was about to break free.
Man, bro. Y'all niggas be safe out there, bro. There's some crazy people out there, bro. Some insane people out there, bro.
Until a sick and twisted fate intervened. She had an abundance of life ahead before she was cruelly snatched away by the very person who was entrusted to cherish and protect her. While her cowardly killer may have avoided his punishment by taking his own life, it does ensure that he will never hurt another woman again. One way to look at it is, should he have gotten away with her murder at trial, then who knows who he may have hurt in the future.
Yeah, fuck
And I
that
don't
nigga,
say this
bro.
with vengeance, pride, or happiness, but maybe this was just another case of the trash taking itself out. Anyway, folks, I think that pretty much covers our case today. However, before I go, I'd love to know what you think about this case. Do you think that Tom was guilty?
Man,
And do you
W video. Yeah,
think that him
that nigga for sure guilty. Fuck that
his
nigga.
own life basically confirms this. As always, let me know in the comment section down below. And while you're there, let me know what country you're messaging from. Thank you for watching, folks. And thank you to...
Rest in peace to that girl, bro. Listen, guys, if you're in a happy relationship, you don't have to post every second of it online. Couples who do that have something going on in the background. I wouldn't say every single couple does, but like, bro, this is just more of a, I guess more of a amplified lesson that like, bro, this social media shit don't mean shit for real, bro.